So I'm super excited because I haven't done a coffee and games podcast in a while. So I have half a cup of iced coffee. I'm not allowed to have more than 2 cups now. So this is my second cup. And after that, I can't have any. So it's perfect that we're doing the podcast at this time. But I'm very excited. Hopefully, we'll be doing another one every week. And I'm excited to bring back Mela. And thank you so much again for saying that you would do this, especially on a little bit of short notice.
Hello, thank you for having me back.
And if you just want to let everybody know where you are, I saw you have been using your Twitter even more than I saw you for the other podcast. So I'm super excited about that. And I have that on the overlay as well.
Yep, I'm a Guild Wars 2 streamer. I've been streaming the game for a very long time. I've been playing for over 6 years. You can find me on twitch.tv/Mela or on Twitter. I'm at I'm Mela. Unfortunately, the name was stolen away from me a long time ago, but there you go.
Perfect. And with everything that you have been doing for that social and doing everything for Hard Stuck, can you give us a little bit of updates for? I saw you had new emotes too for your stream.
Yep.
So you want to discuss those a little bit, talk about the artist as well? Did you come up with the idea? Just everything that you've been doing for your channel recently.
So yeah, I made some small channel changes, the way I go about things here and there. It took me a very long time, but I finally got some sub emotes and some other stuff. I've been using social media more. It's not something I put a lot of effort into, but especially in a game like Guild Wars 2, which hopefully this will change probably soon without things are going really well. But I definitely got to use social media and other platforms, even like YouTube or Instagram as well, because it reaches out to more people. As a streamer or, in like a smaller game, I guess you could say.
Absolutely.
I've been trying to get into the stuff, even though I'm not extremely familiar with it. And yeah, I don't know, tweeting stuff is a bit, I don't know, kind of still weird for me, but I try to do it as much as I can.
Mine is double checking mine before I actually send them, because I normally have some kind of spelling or grammatical error that I missed, and everybody else picks on me, and I'm over here saying, why doesn't Twitter have an edit button then?
Yeah,
so I can fix it, especially if it gets a lot of traction, because Guild Wars 2 socials have been picking up, especially on Twitter, and I'm super excited about it. So I'm like, I have 70 likes on a tweet. I don't want to delete the tweet because I did an apostrophe S for, possession of something rather than. But anyway, speaking of YouTube, previously you had talked about having 2 separate YouTube channels and you weren't sure which one you wanted to keep. Have you figured that out yet? Or is that kind of on the back burner right now too?
I've been kind of sneaky about it. My old YouTube channel, the one where I started the game, it was mostly it was really focused on end game PvE content. So I've always only uploaded things like very fast, just weekly raid kills with my old raid guild, which is Snowcrows. Some people might be familiar with it. And I don't know, grinded runs for like records or like world's first races and things like that. And it got to a period of time where you couldn't always do that because you don't have like 10 players to actually grind those kind of things. Or the game doesn't get a new raid for like 2 years. So world's first races are gone and things like that. So it kind of ended up having a little bit of fun with it, uploading some like meme videos and things like that, like fun stuff. And it kind of turned into a mix of both at some point. And then I actually started focusing on my stream more. So I added some other stuff on top, which is like stream highlights, and it was turning into a bit of a into a bit of a mess. And my old followers that know me from like back in the SC days, where I only did like raids and like end game PvE content, they didn't really know me because of my stream. Like in a way, as I said, like I'm still kind of new to the whole like tweeting like YouTube stuff. Because I don't really have much time to like, unfortunately, like put effort on that. But I kind of wanted to like restart from scratch, right? Focus more on Guild Wars 2 community and like me, like my face and like talking to people rather than just like pressing buttons very fast in the game to do like damage rotations.
Yeah.
Right? So I kind of start from scratch, and I'm gonna be still doing like high-end PvE contents, But also, I don't know, some like fun challenges, meme videos, like all the things that I always did, but I'm now gonna kind of like implement my stream into them, because at the end of the day, that's kind of what I do in the game, right? I stream, I talk to people, I play PVE, and I just kind of share like the full thing rather than just the gameplay, right?
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
I did it a bit like sneakily so far. I like my bot, my YouTube command is now like first channel actually links my new one, and my second one links to my old one. It used to be swapped, but now I changed it the other way around. But I will
Boost
eventually
that
like do,
algorithm all sneaky like.
yeah, I will eventually do like a full like YouTube channel's rebrand. I don't know, like Legacy Mela channel or something, and then
Hey, that's still progression from the last time we talked, though. And
yep.
actually, speaking of competitions and snow crows, and yes, you had mentioned that in the first podcast that that was where you had started doing things that were more of a challenge in world firsts and things like that. I believe recently Hardstuck had a competition for doing raids as quickly as possible, just for like time trial type things, and that snow crows was a part of it. So that was really cool. Are you guys setting up anything like that in the near future, especially for raids?
Yeah, Snuggers ended up winning the entire thing. First place. They played extremely well. They showed some really cool strats, some very new strats as well. It was really, really exciting, and we definitely want to do more of that. We don't really wanna give dates like away too
I know,
quickly
I'm
because
pressuring you. I'm being
otherwise, well, honestly, mostly because of the raiders.
right.
We don't wanna like announce a raid tournament 6 months before it happens, and then they're like, oh yeah, dude, let's start practicing now. Let's practice for six
Well,
months,
Zan
and they're
asked me
like,
on her podcast, and I sort of spilled the beans. And so, yeah, good luck, guys.
yeah,
We're
like
not going
we,
to
we
tell you
kind of
what rate it is, but
we kind of already like did that with this one, and people were like really burned out. Like there's always the argument of, yeah, I mean, it's always up to them, just don't practice so much, but people want to win, so we kind of gotta we're gonna play ball for a little bit, giving them a little bit of time to rest. Some people are actually taking like months away from the game before they come back because of how tiring the
wow.
practice was for the tournament. But for example, at the end of this month, August, there is this like beta thing where you're able to play all of the 9 new specs
Hmm.
in every game mode. We're gonna be doing a kind of like a fun tournament. It's probably going to be only the 9 new specs, uh, like a raid tournament with only those 9 and nothing else.
Oh,
And
that'll be fun.
we're gonna put like a prize pool for that, like some, I don't know, real money prize pool, in-game stuff, and see what, I don't know. It's not gonna be anything like super serious. So we kind of, announce a little bit. I mean, we kind of have to announce it now because the beta stuff is happening like right now for EOD.
Right.
But yeah, we're gonna do stuff like this. We also have some PvP stuff planned for the elite specs. PvP stuff planned after the expansion actually comes out. Um, we do want to do like Wolvie World events as well. It's just a little bit harder for Wolvie World because the community is a bit more. You got to be a little bit more precise. Community
Right.
is very large, and they are very scary Wolvie
That's
World
one of the
players.
things I haven't tried yet is actually PvP at all. I've 1v1'd a couple of people just like
Ooh,
hanging out, but I haven't actually like gone into a legit PvP like game mode or done anything with World v World yet. So I keep holding out on people. Everybody's like Zan PvP one, and I'm like, oh, you wait. We'll get there.
one day.
But that's really cool, especially since it's going to be a beta. Nobody's going to know how these new elite specs are going to work. Nobody's really going to have a lot of time with the abilities. So throwing them right into a competition like that, especially a raid, is incredible. Especially since I don't know if you were there for my first encounter rating. So that's actually what the reason that I had asked you on today was to talk about stuff like that. I just kind of wanted to go everything else first. But little bit of a story. So I started with Wing 1 because I was told that within the story, if you complete Wing 1 through Wing 3 before Living World Season 3, that you would get a little bit of extra added lore. Like, obviously, you would get it from the NPCs, and they do really well talking about exposition, but it's a lot more fun to do it in these raids. And I was really surprised because a large number of people in my chat were actually really adamant that I don't raid because they thought that people were going to be like really rude because of like the, you know, the the build that I had and a bunch of other things. And everyone was like, I've never raided before. I have 5,000 hours logged in the game and I've never raided. And I was like, really? I've raided in all of these other MMOs. And I kept trying to make people feel better. I was like, I led Mythic World of Warcraft. I was really big into Savage, and I even did Ultimate, which is the highest, like the top 1% do Ultimate in Final Fantasy XIV, let's say. And I was like, I'm not scared. I'm not scared. Plus, it's my group. Like, I'm not scared. We had somebody who was kind of hanging out. We did Veil Guardian completely blind. So we went in, got Veil Guardian down to the last phase, that 33% doing where you split and you have to take care of the ads again and then fight the boss afterwards, where 2 parts of the platforms light up. And so we did that whole thing blind, trying to figure it out. And then finally, once we got to that point, we were like, okay, we get it, but how can we actually like complete this boss at the end? And so we had someone run us through like a little bit of what the mechanics actually were. But seeing it for me a couple of times was no big deal. So my very first time in, we completed Veil Guardian in, I think it was 16 pulls, because we did it ourselves blind, and we had 8 out of 10 people that had never even stepped into a raid. So I'm super excited, but I had people in chat that were like, how is this fun? Nobody looked up the fight. Nobody did this. What's your DPS? Is it 20K? Are you using a Snow Crow's build? And I'm over here going, first of all, you can down it. Our highest DPS isn't even someone who had downed it before, and it was only 11K, by the way. And we downed it way before the actual enrage for what that is went off. And so I kind of wanted to talk to you about that a little bit. Do you get that in your chat sometimes when you're trying to raid lead? How do you feel about that mindset?
Okay. So there's like
and
two
it's
things
okay.
to talk
Say what you want to say. Don't feel like
yeah, I have to be very careful, but I will say everything I want to say, right?
Okay.
Okay, I've been raiding since the raids released into the game. It wasn't since day one, but like raids reset weekly. Every week you can now drop loot from the bosses again. I've been raiding since like day 3, because I wasn't home. I couldn't buy the expansion when they actually dropped day 1. But I raided week 1, and I've been raiding for over well, I don't know when the raids come out. I don't even remember anymore. But I've been raiding for like 5 years or so. And I have gotten a lot of experience actually playing the game, like game knowledge, team play, decision making. Why I should like rest this guy in downstate? Why I should just like ignore him? It's like, I don't know, is irrelevant or whatever, right? A little bit too far there, but
that's okay.
A lot of this stuff I gotten by playing at like a very high level with like hardcore guilds, right? But a lot of it just comes from like playing the game on the LFG, or with people in Twitch chat, or like random people that come to chat are like, oh, getting into raid is so hard. And I'm like, oh yeah, okay, let's do a raid. And then we just like go in and the boss dies. Like it's a lot of experience that you get by talking to people and just playing with many different people that have different personalities and different life experiences, different gameplay, different things that they do. You come to realize after so many years that things like, oh, DPS, I don't know, meta build, or oh yeah, this DPS rotation, it needs to be done. Like all of the things that the raiding community, that the lower end of the raiding community perceives as being extremely relevant, like things like running a meta build, are completely irrelevant when you actually play with good players. So is your DPS 20k? Are you running like a Snowcross build? Like those things, they will never kill you a boss if you weren't gonna kill it because you fail mechanics or you don't understand the encounter. So what I mean with this is that, yeah, your highest DPS was 11k on Veil Guardian, and you killed it before the enrage even happened. This kind of goes back to the discussion we were having in the last podcast, which is this game doesn't really have DPS checks. Like the enrages, So, like, okay, what do you think the enrage on VG does when the timer runs out?
Actually, I'm pretty sure that it gives it's like a debuff essentially. So you take extra damage, I believe, from all of the abilities that happens. Is it 200% extra damage?
Yeah, it
Because it's
varies
not like
between
an all
bosses.
out like just kill. It's just like a dampening effect.
Yes. So every boss, well, it's not on all bosses. Some bosses do have like an actual like full on death, like Largos, for example. It's like the second boss in Wing 6.
Mhm.
Um, but like on VG, it just does extra damage. And the aura in the encounter, like the aura that like it just you take damage when you exist in the arena, right?
Right.
Like this is what usually the bosses do. They just do more damage, or the aura does more damage, right? Um, there is no like insta death. So even like you killed it without enraging with like 11k DPS, without, I don't know, maybe people in the group were running meta builds or like, the top end builds. Maybe they weren't. But the fact that you killed the boss without enrage tells you a lot with people
Mhm.
that have never done the boss before, first time like blind. Like that's kind of how some of the bosses are. It's not all of them. Like some of them are actually challenging. Like Doom, for example, or Kadim 1, which
Oh yeah.
is the last boss of um the last boss of the sixth raid. Like Wing 5, 6, and 7, like raid 5, 6, and 7 are usually considered well, actually no, not Wing 7, but 5 and 6 are considered like very hard in
Mhm.
comparison to all the other ones. But you don't really need to run those builds to kill the bosses. If your goal is to kill the bosses every single week, just get the loot because you don't have time to waste. Because I don't know, you can only play like a couple hours a game because I don't know, you got like work to do or you got to study or something like that. Um, just play a build that makes you win. You don't
Right.
need to play like the top build that does like maybe 100 extra damage per second because the boss will die anyway. And I say this knowing exactly what I am saying and knowing that like all of my PvE like friends will hate me for saying this, but that's
Because they
just
don't want
true.
everyone to know.
Like it's just true. Like I've shown this on stream multiple times. I'm actually in the game right now. I'm jumping around in the aerodrome, right? Like I showed this a lot. Like people struggle with like the engineer DPS rotation, or like the
Mhm.
elementalist DPS rotation because they have a lot of buttons. People are really scared of them, right?
I know.
Then I show them how simple the rotation can be,
Mhm.
and they are genuinely surprised. Um, Even if the rotation is simplified, you actually don't lose that much damage. You just gotta know which buttons to press, right?
Right.
Um, like if you were to run, let's say you bring 10 people that have never done a raid boss before into a raid boss, and they run like completely random builds. Like I don't know, maybe you just boosted to level 80, you have like Soldier's gear. And the Soldier's gear doesn't really do that much damage because that's kind of the point of the gear. It makes you tanky,
Right.
right? It doesn't
Yeah.
it doesn't focus on DPS. If you go like with like 10 random builds, completely random people, you're not even on voice coordinating. People are just like running around in circles, not knowing the boss mechanics. Yeah, you will not kill the boss.
Mhm.
But as soon as you make a little change to that, such as getting on voice or organizing the team composition, everything will change. Honestly, the builds the people are running do not make the difference in that case. Um, because if you can be running every single person in the group with exactly the meta builds down to the infusions, right? Which give you like 5 extra stats. If they don't know how the boss works and they're not coordinating and the team comp is like random, you're not going to kill the boss either way. However, if you have 10 good players and you give them 10 random builds, the boss will die anyway.
Yep. Or at least if you know the fight. That was actually what I was going to
Yeah.
ask you next. Speaking of knowing the mechanics to a fight, which, and you kind of answered it, but if you could go a little bit more in depth with your experiences, possibly if you've had an issue with it in the past with a group, or if you've had to tell somebody to swap something. My big thing, especially coming from Final Fantasy XIV, is knowing a strat versus knowing a fight. And for their party finder, in Final Fantasy XIV, you literally put what strat you're doing in the party finder. And some people, because they just watched someone get like the first kills. They go on YouTube, they pick their favorite strat, they watch that, they know it by heart, and they literally say, I will only join this group if they're doing this strat because I don't actually know the fight. I only know where I need to stand for this specific strat. Have you ever come into that with anything in Guild Wars 2? And has it ever been like an issue? Have you ever had to be like, guys, come on?
Yeah, so there is one fight that comes to mind, and that is Demos, is one of the bosses in Wing 4. Demos, for the longest time, and I'm sure people still do this to this day, I've seen this on NA more often, for whatever reason, but there is a strat called the ranged strat. So, as the name implies, you just range the boss down instead of being in melee range. And the reason for this is because the Demos encounter, as I'm going to spoil you. Now that you're raiding, you will probably remember.
That's okay.
Some of these
Go
things,
ahead.
but, there is a mechanic in the boss fight that makes it so that sometimes you don't want to be in melee range because a mechanic appears, and if you stay in that mechanic, it's very bad. And to avoid this, people just don't stay in melee range. The tank is just doing his own thing on the edge of the arena or on the edge of the platform. Everyone else is just AFKing in the middle, pressing 1 on their keyboard, and the boss will eventually die. And this is a range strat. Now, people will actually do this. They join the LFG. They go like, "Is this melee strat? Yes. Okay, I am out. Goodbye. Is this range strat? Yes. Okay, then I am in." Because they are terrified of being in melee range on a boss like Demos because of how the mechanics work. But it does happen. But when it comes down to strats, most of the strats in raids, they are pretty. They are pretty kind of like already there. We kind of need to be thankful about this. I was talking about this earlier on stream. Actually, there isn't any. Well, I mean, there might be a few maybe, but in the known community of the game, there isn't any content creators or any channels on YouTube. Well, I mean, that kind of falls in the same category, I guess, but there isn't anyone that kind of like misleads people like a lot when it comes down to like strategies or builds or any of that stuff. Like there might be some, I don't know, some weird examples, but when it comes down to strategies, Veil Guardian, usually you do it on the side. In the first phase, you do it on the side in the second phase, and then you rotate in circles around the arena in the last one. Demos, you either do in melee range, and if melee range doesn't go that well, then you AFK in the middle, press 1 on your keyboard, and the boss will eventually die. There is like 1 or 2 strats, but they're pretty straightforward. Like people are very familiar with them. Like honestly, like the most important thing when it comes to raids, like just tank the boss away from the group, and then you win.
Except you have those people that like dodge the freaking the forced movement, those puddles on VG, and like dodge in front of the boss and somehow get hit by a cleave.
In the face
and you're like,
die.
no.
Yeah, sometimes that happens.
Actually, speaking of which, I didn't mention too for odd comps because it was again 8 out of 10 people who were completely blind. Like some were fresh 80s. We actually and again, people in chat were like, "What?" And it wasn't everybody. It was just a couple of people. They were like, why would you go in blind and learn these things? And I'm like, it's kind of like a day 1 raid. Like you go in there, you learn the fight yourself, you pick a strat. But on top of that, we didn't have Alacrity, we didn't have a Banner Slave, we didn't have a Scourge, and we used a Thief tank.
Oh, yes, that's the true experience.
Right?
Dude, when I did my first ever VG kill, not only did I forget to loot the boss, and it's something that I'm never going to forget, and it's actually uploaded on YouTube as well. But we just had like random classes. Like back then, Out of Thorns expansion had just come out. Like no one knew any of the specs. No one knew any of like the tested builds already. We just kind of went in and like smashed our keyboards and killed the bosses. Our builds were just like just random stuff. Like if I go back, honestly, if anyone was to go back now and watch my first VG kill and realize what we were playing, like the word cringe does not describe what they would look at. It's terrible. I don't know. We had like a base mesmer tank with greatsword, I don't NG like push the seekers away. I don't even remember anymore,
Yeah.
but it was something, right?
That's incredible. On our first kill, I was playing Core Ellie, so dual dagger Core
Nice,
Ellie Condi.
very
But
nice.
hey, we downed it. But yeah, so that's actually what I was going to ask is since you were talking about that, especially with your first experience, and I know that there's certain people who, like you said, have things to do, so you're going to get in there. So a learning group or a group going in blind obviously isn't the group for you. So if that's not your type of fun, you don't want to help out, then stay out of the group. But do you believe that other than that, especially just starting out as a new player, a brand new player, since we have so many new people actually coming from like World of Warcraft or whatever, starting to stream the game, do you think that they should have a specific comp as a new player to go into rating, like Wing 1, or some people even said that Wing 4, the first boss, is easier than VG? So do you think that they should have like full buffs? Are there buffs that they could like not have? Do they need to have a scourge? We'll go from that.
Yeah, I love the fact that you mentioned Scourge. Like,
I know.
Scourge right now, Scourge in PvE
Dumb.
is like one of the gods in the story, right? That just add Scourge in as well.
It is, but it almost feels like a crutch because I think when we got our VG kill going in blind, we didn't have a scourge, and I think like on our actual kill we had like 5 or 6 reses, and then someone else came in and they did one with a scourge. Well, we did it the next week, and I didn't die at all until the end. Actually, I killed myself on accident, but
Ooh, feeding.
44 reses from a scourge. 44
Yeah.
going in like
Okay.
what? So yeah, go ahead, but I just wanted to get that in there like
Yeah. Heal Scourge is a good build. That's all I have to say about that, to be honest. But
yeah.
okay, like when it comes down to comps, and this it always kind of goes back to the same point, which is the game doesn't really have DPS checks. First of all, I want to be clear what I mean with that, because I saw a lot of people in the like last time I was on disagreeing with that on something that I think is very unfair. Let's like I want to talk about Gorseval and make a Gorseval example. It's the second
Yeah,
boss in Wing
absolutely.
1.
I know we one shot that one with kind of close to
So
comps.
yeah, Gorseval is not the most complicated boss in the game, right?
Mhm.
And you've probably seen that yourself.
Yes.
The way you are supposed to do the encounter is that after the break bar, a timer starts that you don't see. And after X amount of seconds, the boss does a World Eater attack. He charges up the entire platform with like giant orange AoE. And if you don't phase the boss to 66% fast enough, that AoE one-shots the entire group. Now, the way you are supposed to avoid that mechanic is by killing the walls around the arena, jumping off of the platform, taking the updrafts, and then gliding back on the platform. So that's not a DPS check in the way that people normally refer to it as a DPS check. That's
Mhm.
just us skipping the mechanics because the game has so much power creep, unfortunately.
Right.
Like what I would consider a DPS check would be something that you do not skip because of damage. It is something that if you don't have enough damage, as in like you need to actually put effort into, you are just dead. There's no way to avoid it, right?
Right.
Like
And I was trying to explain that to people for 14 because there are literally fights where if you don't do enough damage for the first phase to get into the second phase, you just wipe. Or
yes.
for like savage raids, it's literally like there's a bar that comes up and it fills. And once it gets to that fill point, it does like this massive AoE that kills everyone, but it starts at melee and then goes out to range. So technically ranged has like 1 more millisecond to see if they can kill it, if they can get, enough, but you're dead. And that's what I always knew was a DPS check too. So when people kept telling me, no, there's DPS checks on boss, I'm like, are you sure? Because not from what I've seen.
It's very it's very tricky to show people how low the DPS check in this game actually is until they see it and realize.
Mhm.
Like to give you one example, and then I'll kind of get into the composition and boons necessary and stuff because I think
Sure.
that's really important to talk about. But the Gorseval phase we're talking about, we were able to. Okay, this is kind of a longest story. Like, we ranged one of the bosses from a tree branch as a meme, but we managed to do that phase by out attacking on Longbow on Soul Beast and nothing else.
That's fantastic.
Like, just press 1 and the boss phased without the World Eater attack happening.
That's incredible.
For all 3 phases. And then we portaled down, we killed the ads, and we portaled back to the tree branch. It was a bit of it was kind of a funny meme, but
Right.
that was not even to show how easy the DPS check is. It just kind of happened to be that way because of the meme kill we were trying to pull off, right? And also another example, just as like a general thing, Guild Wars 2 raids don't have a. By the way, you should never try to do this. Anyone trying to do this, what I'm about to say right now, please don't. Right? Do not do this to me. Right? It will be my fault. I'll be responsible. Everyone will hate me. Avoid. But we wanted to do raids without being level 80.
Right.
So we went into Wing 1 and we did full Wing 1 on level 70. I don't remember. I think it's 76 or 78 characters. And it wasn't that bad in terms of difficulty, because of exactly what we'll get into the next topic, which is like what boons you actually need, what boons are not like necessary or anything like that. And then people were like, oh, it's a Wing 1, it's very easy, and also, level 78 or level 76 is actually not that much worse. But in reality, it's very much worse. That's because not only do you not have elite specs, your stats are inferior. You cannot equip level 80 gear, which means that your damage will be lower. Your defensive stats are going to be lower as well. And your boon uptime is not good, because stats like Harrier, which give you boon duration, or any kind of like good stat, is just non-existent.
Right.
So, and we managed to kill every boss without even being close to the enrage. And then we did the same in Wing 4 on level 74 characters.
Oh, jeez.
And we first tried the first 3 bosses, and then on the last one we had some issues because of the hand kiter having too much damage pressure on him, so we needed to kind of figure some strats out for that. But what I'm trying to say is that, like, I'm not joking or trying to be like mean in any way when I say that there is no real DPS check in this game. You just need to know what boons to have, which ones are important, and honestly, if you're looking for a quick kill, for like a quick clear, just play something that will make you achieve that. Like, the meta builds are really good. That's what I play every day, because the people that make the meta builds, the meta builds are friends of mine. I played with them for like 3 years. Some of them I still play with, and they are really good builds for really good players that can do really good strats and very specific, comps, and surrounded by other players that will actually allow them to pull those strats off. But if you don't have all like the requirements met, you don't have to play those builds, and in some cases it's worse. Now, talking about boons and if you should have a Scourge in a group, like a comp that I would recommend everyone to have when they actually start playing is have like double boon Mesmer, like double boon Chronomancer. Not the DPS variant, just the one that gives you quickness and gives like basically infinite boon extension. And have a druid, have I don't know, like a healing tempest or a healing scourge. Tempest is more for like actual heals, damage reduction, immobilizes, big auras and stuff like that. And it also does have like a lot of rest capabilities, but not as much as Scourge. The 44 rests, as you mentioned on that BG.
That's absolutely ridiculous. It really
I have
is.
seen more than that, and honestly, I do not want to see what happened during the kill. I'm terrified. But that's what Scourge does. You not only it's very hard for people to die if you have a Scourge in your group. No, I'm not even talking about heal Scourge, which, like barrier scales with like a healing power.
Mhm.
I'm not even talking about having like a heal Scourge in a group. I'm just talking about Scourge. That's it. Like Healy Scourge, yes, you have a lot of rests. You port people in downsit towards you, but the barrier is so good. Like
Right.
if you have a heal Necro in your group and you never take any damage, that's because it's just giving you like permanent barrier. And you don't even need to have a heal Necro. If you have like a Condi DPS Scourge, is DPS rotation. This is something that will definitely get changed, by the way, because if it doesn't, honestly, I don't think it's very good. But doing your normal DPS rotation on Condition Scourge is constantly Condi cleansing people, is giving them permanent barrier, and it makes you, as the Scourge, immortal while also doing a lot of damage.
That's so
And
broken.
oh, dude, I didn't have
It's
to
so
say
broken.
it. Yes. You don't have to think, oh, I'll give barrier to my team right now. No, it's part of your rotation. You're constantly giving barrier to them right now. Like, Scourge is so good. If you guys want to win, just play Scourge. Like, play Scourge. Firebrand is also good.
Mhm.
Play Heal Tempest. Play, like, the good support classes. Like, play... You want to have good support. Like, you remember what we've been talking about the entire time, that DPS checks don't exist, kind of? And the fact that, the Enragers don't really do anything. DPS is kind of irrelevant. The most important thing is that you live.
Right.
So how do
Thank
you
you.
live? You live by
That's what I
having
needed.
a lot of defenses. Like barrier is something that some classes have, but Scourge has the most of it. It was kind of given to Scourge, and then they also put it to other classes because the other classes were sad that only Scourge had barrier. And yeah, you want to have Scourge. You want to have the protection boon. The protection boon is very good. 33% incoming, like 33% damage reduction, right? Is a lot of damage reduction, right? Something hits you when you have protection, you laugh.
It
Something
doesn't
hits
hit
you when you
you.
don't have protection,
It
you're dead.
tickles.
Like without protection, you die. And yeah, you want to have the protection boon. You want to have the regeneration boon. You want to make sure that the regeneration boon comes from a class that has a lot of healing power. So how do you do that? You need to be the one with the most concentration, so that you kind of like take priority on the regeneration you apply, because you have the most boon duration in your group, right? This is why we run like Harrier gear. Harrier gives you a lot of boon duration, so you are the one that applies the regeneration, that does the most healing. So have someone that gives you protection. If you have perma prot in a raid and you don't have any might, you have like 0 might uptime, and you have 100% prot time, you will kill the boss, right? If you have 25 might uptime and you have 0 protection uptime, you will probably die very quickly. And this goes for regen as well, especially in boss encounters that have aura ticks. Like just existing in the fight does damage to you. If you don't have regen, you will die from that within like, I don't know, like 20 seconds, right?
Right.
So stuff like, okay, the thing with newer players is that, of course, they are new. They might not be like extremely familiar with stuff. So even applying a boon, like let's say you were playing the Druid, which nowadays in the current meta is the one that applies might, together with probably like, I don't know, like a Lacran, not a Lacran, a Lac Mirage, like a new kind of a newish build that popped out after last balance patch. If the Druid doesn't exactly know how to provide might properly, the might will drop, right? But that's where the boon extension comes into play. From the Chrono, right? The Chrono, it can boon extend with Signet of Inspiration. Extend all boons to your entire team, by the way, by 2 seconds. And you can do that twice, because you have something called Continuum Split, which kind of gives you back all of your cooldowns. And then you can do it again, because you have Mimic, which allows you to use like another skill again after 1 second, right? So you extend your boons by 6 seconds within like 2 seconds to your entire team. And that's not just about might. If your Druid is a little bit maybe inexperienced, you might not give enough protection uptime, which means that you're taking a lot of damage because it's 33%, right? And the Chrono does the same thing. Chrono extends the protection duration to your entire team by like 6 seconds every single time, basically, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have perma prot, you have perma might, you have perma fury, you have perma vigor, you have perma alacrity. Like Boon Chrono is a build that unfortunately it's kind of been dying because no one really talks about it, I guess, as much as they should. But it's such a good build. It carries so hard, especially in newer groups, because the boon uptime in newer groups is usually what holds them back, unfortunately.
Right.
Like the DPS, yeah, I mean it's irrelevant to a certain extent, yes, but the boons are not. Like boons, you need boons. Like regen protection, you will die if you don't have those too.
Right. But there's a way to, depending on what your comp is, get as many of those as possible, and at least making sure that you have, protection and regen and whatever, depending. Like you can take certain, utility skills or certain builds for whatever your comp ends up being to achieve that, I guess is what I'm saying. You don't necessarily have to have like a boon chrono.
You mean like changing utilities of other people so you don't need a boon chrono?
No, I meant like changing your own to fit what other people's builds are to make sure that you have the important boons is something that you could do too.
Yeah, you can do that. You can do that. Like an example would be it would be, let's say you don't want to run a druid in because I mean honestly, like in high-end PvE, druid is actually not optimal. You just take a soul beast with spirits in some cases, because spirits, you have like I'm not sure if you're very familiar with ranger, but ranger has this spirit called stone spirit. It basically gives you like what is like 80% protection uptime by itself, something like that.
That's awesome.
You don't actually need to be druid to have the spirits, because the spirits are a base ranger ability. So you can go full DPS soul beast and take a spirit instead of one of your damage utilities. And you basically carry the entire group by losing a little bit of damage. And you can kind of do this on like any build. Example would be also, I don't know, maybe warrior. Like warrior as a headbutt elite skill. You headbutt stuff, it does a lot of break bar damage, and then you have full adrenaline, so you can do big damage, right? You can also take the elite called Battle Standard. It's a banner you place on the ground. It pulses a little bit of might. It pulses a little bit of fury, and also if you drop it on downstate players, you get them up.
Right.
There is these like minor changes you can do on single classes that can kind of cover for other people's inexperience, or if you're just like completely lacking a class. But also, yeah, like lacking a class is not the end of the world. Like example, today I did a training for Wing 1. We didn't have a warrior. I just didn't care about it. Like it's irrelevant. Like what is warrior in Guild Wars 2 raids as of right now, me speaking? It's a DPS class that brings banners to increase your group DPS even more. By a lot, by the way, but it's not necessary to kill any of the bosses. Right? Like no one in my chat even mentioned, Mela, you don't have a warrior, because they already know that it doesn't matter. Right?
They know that it doesn't matter and to not challenge you. So in my group, they're like, Zan, you don't have a banner slave? Zan, you don't have alacrity? Zan, where is your firebrand and your scourge? You're not going to be able to do this. And I'm like, guys, we're going to be able to do this. Don't worry.
Yes. Like, to be fair, like, I too understand that all of those people are just trying to be helpful, but
oh yeah, absolutely.
It's very like, we are thankful that they are doing that rather than, I don't know, just calling you names and stuff. But I'm very thankful for that as well. Thank you, Guild Wars 2 community. But yeah, like these things are just not. It's something that you definitely 100,000% want, but it's not something you need to kill a raid boss.
Right.
And
And
it will
actually,
probably never be.
speaking of metas and comps and snow crows and all of these guides, did you ever write any guides when you did all of that in the beginning for snow crows? And have you written or helped with any of the build guides for hard stuck so far?
Ooh, you're bringing back memories now to me. So when the Snowcrows when the guild kind of started, I wasn't there. Like the guild was already established for a very long time. But I used to play Elementalist a lot back then, and I did help out with a lot of Elementalist stuff, like theory crafting for compositions. Whenever there was a balance patch, even things that were like Elementalist related, like whenever there was like a, I mean, there was one update where Druid became 10 men.
Mhm.
So I just kind of had the idea of having like a druid in one subgroup for Fury and then the warrior with like for great justice in the other one for like cover Fury for everyone. There is like like small things that honestly, if you are an experienced players, kind of like anyone can do this. You just kind of get it like on TeamSpeak. That's what SC uses because they're a bunch of boomers. But you just get it like on TeamSpeak and just like talk about stuff and theory craft stuff. It's a lot of fun actually. But what I did a lot of back in SC is I mostly did just elementalist like benchmarks and theory crafting for benchmarks, like theory crafting for raid records and comps for like races or like tournaments, tournament practice, and like all these things.
Mhm.
Which is something that I'm getting to do again now with Hardstock. Yeah, like the Hardstock website, it actually I wish this was scripted, but it's not. But it kind of all puts together what we've been talking about during this entire podcast when it comes to like builds and boon up times and things that are necessary for a raid or not. We have this idea of exactly what we just mentioned the entire time. Like you don't need to play a meta build in the way that we call a meta build, like a full glass cannon damage build to kill the
Mhm.
boss. If you don't have the time to put effort into learning that or playing that, or you don't want it so that, oh, I made a mistake, I am dead because my build is very squishy, you just don't do that. You can just simply play a different stat type or change, in some cases, even a single trait, and you get like extra like 5,000 HP and you're just a lot tankier, right?
Mhm.
So that's kind of what we want to do on the side. So I've been together with some other people theory crafting some builds that can do that without changing the rotation too much. So that if you ever wanted to upgrade to like a more aggressive build, you can do that very easily. But the build is simplified so that all you have to do is maybe add an extra step to it, and you have the final version of the rotation. Or all you have to do is change like maybe one set of your runes, like 6 runes. I pay 1 gold on the trading post, and you have your finished full aggressive build. Right, trying to make it as simple as possible for people to play things that are easier, doesn't lose them that much damage, and they can just kind of have fun. Right.
Right.
Because yeah, we've been talking about raids and tryharding and what is important, what is important, but there's a
Mhm.
lot of people that just play the game for fun, and we're we're in the spot of the community, like you, me, Teapot, all the people in our stock. We have a decent amount of influence, and it's important to use this influence for good, not just for oh yeah, I'm a good player, you're bad, right?
Right.
Like I don't know, like helping people out that don't have time to put as much effort into something like a game because they got, I don't know, better stuff to do, right? Is it is important. Right? I go on the website like after the podcast is over, I actually need to finish like some of the builds on the site. I
Mm.
think about it as in, is this build what the build is actually meant for? Like elementalist, you do damage. Yes. You're squishy. Yes. Okay. Maybe you're a little bit less squishy, but you are still doing the same thing. You can just
Mhm.
kind of maybe pay like 1 second less attention. You maybe have a little bit of extra, sorry, like less ferocity or less precision, and use like a different food, right? Like very, very small changes that just make people comfy and they can just kind of play the game, right? And kill the
Right.
bosses anyway, because look, guys, I know that this might sound mind blowing. Again, I always have this like extremely hot takes, but losing like 100 power on your build, it doesn't make the raid boss unkillable, right?
Right.
it just doesn't. So yeah.
And I think that's the big thing too, is it's just kind of been this mindset that it's like, if you don't use what's currently the build that's talked about right now on like Snow Crows, like when I first started playing, and that's just an example. Like obviously use whatever you have fun with. If that fits your playstyle, that fits your playstyle, you know, but some people might use that build and still not play it correctly. So it's not necessarily optimal either. But there's
Mhm.
also the thing where, like, right when I first started playing, and again, I know everybody was just being helpful, but I feel like it's a little bit of, I think my favorite term for it recently has been Teapot saying, like, misinformation. There's a lot of
Yes.
misinformation. So, like, when I started playing, it was, you should look at builds from here and here. And when you go into, you know, Heart of Thorns, you have to wear Trailblazer gear. Or you have to, you know, the best gear is Berserkers or whatever, which it very might well have been, you know, to teach someone how to dodge if they don't necessarily pay attention to certain things. So if you get hit, you're going to die, you know, especially for Trailblazer gear. But it's like, I feel like it's a lot of misinformation. I think a lot of people did it for Stay Safe TV, TTV, who was just starting to play, who's also coming over from World of Warcraft. And people were like, oh, he's like, I'm going to try this. I'm going to be a Necro. And people were like, oh, you should use this build. And they're linking him all of these things. And he's like, I'm just going to go pistol and just have fun with what I'm doing, because this looks difficult and I like the idea of making it more difficult as I play. And it's just, I feel like that's the thing, is it's just kind of like a mindset that people are so used to that they don't, when the mold is broken, they're like, wait, what? You can do that? Like, why would you want to make it harder for yourself or seemingly like more difficult and open? I completely agree.
He's actually approaching this very well. Stay Safe TV. Like people are like, "Oh yeah, play action camera. It's good." And then he goes like, "I will actually not do that." And then
Yeah. No.
yeah, he's just kind of trolling the chat back. And honestly, I really really like that.
I do
But
too.
like, kind of going back to the whole build, like you can play whatever you want. I remember actually we had this discussion last time about like, wow, monthly subscriptions, like play how you want, you know, paying my monthly fee or whatever.
Yep.
Like, yeah, that was a funny meme. But I do agree that you should play however you want, but
Mhm.
if you are surrounded by other people, you should also have the decency of not being don't be a bad person,
Yeah.
right?
Well, you
Like,
shouldn't be playing solo in a group encounter. Like, I
yes,
see what you're getting at.
pretty
Like,
much.
be a
Yeah,
team
that's
player. If someone like doesn't have something, or if like you could provide it, if you're able to swap to, you know, providing a certain boon, you totally. Oh yeah,
and
absolutely.
like a lot of people also say that, oh yeah, I was playing however I wanted and then I got kicked out of the group. And then it's like, oh yeah, it's because I called this guy, I don't know, dog shit at the game or something like that, right? And it's like, well, then next time don't do that and he
Yeah,
won't kick
right.
you, right? And about, you know, not being able to find the group to play however you want. Like, let's talk about this, Xandrii, right? You have
Mhm.
experienced this very, very recently. So your first ever raid you did, um, guide me to the entire process. Like, how did you make the group? Who were the people in the group?
I
And
actually
did
didn't
you kill
make
the
the group.
boss?
We had a quickness scrapper, who Camu, who put the group together, like just so that we could all get in there, because he did raid training on Saturdays anyway. So he just asked if I wanted to go, and then I was like, yeah. And there are a bunch of people in chat that would want to go too. So I don't remember exactly who went. I just remember like the certain boons that we didn't have, and then they wanted a warrior and we didn't have a warrior, so everybody was like and then we didn't have alacrity, we didn't have a scourge, we didn't really have anyone else that could, or that was comfortable with tanking. So my fiance, who was on his thief, is like, I'll tank thief, it's fine, I just have to move around. So instead of standing there, we had like, people actually had to pay attention to what was going on and actually follow, you know, move around. And because a lot of a lot of the protection and stuff that he was getting was from his dodging. So it's like it was better for him to, because of his build, dodge back and forth while trying to keep the boss as close to stationary as possible, but we still had to move, so people actually had to pay attention. But I feel like we were missing, I don't even know if we had regen, honestly, or anybody that was keeping up regen. I know we had full might because what the core LE that I was using was mainly off of fire and earth, fire, earth, and air, and then I was focusing on blast finishers. And so, like, I wasn't even running Tempest, and I was sitting there getting like all of the might that we needed. So, like I said, our top was 11K. We were all going in, not knowing the fight, learning the fight as we did it, and I was literally like third in damage on core Ellie, just using all of my blast finishers to make sure we at least had like 22 stacks of might the whole time. But yeah, no. So that was pretty much, it was us like trying to figure out in chat how we could make up for something else or change the actual strategy. So we actually took the boss in phase 1, I think around the room for the most part clockwise, moving slowly but waiting for dodges. And then for the second phase, I believe it was counterclockwise. And then the last phase was just kind of like, don't stand in shit, we're gonna down this. And we did.
Okay. So you just
it
made
was
a
better
group
the second
together.
time.
Yeah, it was okay. What happened the second time? Then who organized the group? Was it the same person?
So the second time, we still had our scrapper organize the group, but we did have a scourge. We had was it, I believe, a druid or a firebrand? Yeah, we had a druid, a firebrand. We had me on my Ellie. We had someone else that was also playing like Weaver, and then my fiance swapped to playing warrior so that he could tank like that and have people just stand still. So we were on the outside, and like until we got into that second phase where everything was going, we actually stood on the outside and stood still. But yeah,
So,
and we had pretty much all of our boons then too.
what would you do if you wanted to raid in Guild Wars 2?
If I wanted to raid in Guild Wars 2?
Yeah, let's say you want to do Veil Guardian right now. What would you do about it?
I would probably put see, that's the thing for me is I haven't rated enough or played other classes enough yet because I've been focusing on the story to actually know everything from every single boon. So like I know what I can do. But for me, I would just put a group up just saying like learning group. I want to learn how to lead a Guild Wars 2 group. And I actually like not in Party Finder, in my stream. So that to try to get other new people to try to lead them because I know the fight. Like I know the Veil Guardian fight, I know the Gorsabal fight, I know the Sabbatha fight. We actually 3-shot Sabbatha, we 1-shot Gorsabal as well. So I know how to call out the fights. I just don't know exactly the comps that I would need for boons. And I actually would do different strats for Veil Guardian for new people to bait things too, because I think people are very self-conscious about getting ported and they're very nervous and they don't notice like the sides of their screen glowing or the sound or anything like that in order to dodge. And I feel like it's a lot less, it would be a lot easier to not call out dodge. And it works off of the proximity of the boss. So if I actually had people that were comfortable with dodging when that was about to go off, have people bait those. And then have a set amount of people that would actually stand in the green circle rather than just DPS through it. Because I would want to teach people to fight rather than anything else. So I'd be like, okay, you're ranged. You always go get the green circles as long as they're not in like void zones, right? Like if that side of the arena is glowing, don't go get it. We'll heal through it. But do that and then see if I could get certain melee, including the tank, that were comfortable with baiting the little transportation circles. I forget exactly what they're called, but have someone bait those so that people could stand at range if they weren't necessarily comfortable with it. And those people are always the people that wait, dodge, come back in, follow the boss. You know what I mean? I feel like that's the way I would do it. And then just obviously make sure you had the correct, for when the ads break apart, condition damage, boon strip, heals, you know what I mean? Like, I know that. I just don't necessarily know what every single thing does and what provides it yet because I haven't played everything.
Yep. So you would, as you said, you would ask in stream so you can get, community to join.
Right.
If you didn't have a stream, you would make an LFG, right? So that's kind of something that people just never do. People come to my stream saying that getting into raids is extremely hard. This will probably come up. It will start happening to you as well as you start raiding more, I'm sure. Like, getting into raids is very difficult. And it can be if you're very anxious or if you think as raids, because, that's what they are. But the only thing that is actually stopping you from joining the raids in this game is not even level 80 because you don't need level 80 to
Right.
raid in this game. It's literally just you. Like if you want to raid, you can raid, and it's depending on your time zone, what times you are home, for how long you can play every day. Yeah, it might get to a point where what I'm about to say is just not valid. But
Mhm.
if you don't find a group on the LFG and you just make one, people will eventually join
Right.
because you're not the only one. Right. This is kind of like something that I apply to basically everything I do in life. Like, oh, I don't know, like I fall, I break an arm. I'm like, why me? And then I think, it's probably like 10 people somewhere that broke the arm the exact same time I just did. Right. So if I feel like I'm alone, like, dude, I'm making LFG right now in like tier 1 fractals, no one's going to join. And then if you actually try and make one, people will actually join because there's more people in the same exact situation that you are in. And this goes for raids as well. If you can't lead a raid group because you're not, you feel like you might mess something up as the raid leader, just literally make an LFG and say, Wing One Learning Group is exactly what you said earlier, right?
Mhm.
Just do that. People will join. Honestly, get on voice together and just like, it might be weird, it might be awkward because people are very scared of like getting on voice. This happens a lot as well, but
That is really like I've never noticed that until like playing Guild Wars 2. Or like people will be
yeah.
in voice to listen, but they'll have themselves muted. And I totally get that it's a thing, but I feel like it's been more prominent in Guild Wars 2 than it has in, or at least for the groups that I've been in. Maybe I just didn't meet those people in WoW and 14. But yeah, absolutely.
Just coordinate, just be honest, right? If someone doesn't like you because you're new to the game, what the
Who
fuck,
cares?
dude? Like, like what? I just say, hey, look, I'm new to raids. Here is my LFG. Let's play, right?
Yeah,
It's like
absolutely.
if someone joins and he's being, I don't know, he's being an asshole to you because you're new to the game, just ignore them, man. Like
Yeah.
they were new to the game as
Ignore them or
well.
kick
Like,
them if it's your group. Who cares? Like,
yeah, exactly. But just make an LFG. If you don't wanna lead even, just literally LFG for looking for raid, looking for leader as well.
right.
I mean, there is like an entire section so you can find, like, you can LFG so that people can take you into the group. No one really uses it, but there is a section literally made for that, right? And this
Right.
goes for kind of like everything.
Mhm.
If you want to play however you want, just do that. If people don't accept you, just make your own group. Like literally call the LFG, play how you want raid kills, right? People will join and they will play like tormenting base ranger or something, right? But
Absolutely. And so, with
just
that,
kind of,
since
yeah.
I've kept you for over an hour, speaking of all of that and everything that we've just mentioned, would you recommend raiding to everyone, including new players? And should they be scared or should they just take the leap?
Should I just take the what?
Leap. Leap of
Oh yeah,
faith. Don't be
yeah. Sorry,
scared.
the mic cut out there. I got
It's
confused a little bit.
okay.
Um, I think raiding is a lot of fun. The more you do it, the more bosses you see, the more weird team comps you encounter, like 10 Scourge, very good. The more fun it becomes, especially if you join a community, right? People that raid very often, people that are fun to hang out with, maybe join even a guild that does raids, even if they're not, the most efficient. Maybe I don't know, they keep wiping on VG. Maybe it's fun wipes, right?
Mhm.
Um, just do it. Um, try and do it if you have time. If you play the game a lot, try and do it, right? At least put the effort in. Like if you say, oh, making an LFG is never gonna get anyone in, you know what is never gonna get anyone into your group? The fact that you don't have a group opened, right? Having the group opened will at least give
Yeah.
you a chance of that happening. So just do it. If it doesn't happen, I don't know. Call me bad in the comments and flame me on stream. Just try, right? If people are toxic to you because you're new to the game, honestly, uh, I don't know. Just say word in squad chat and just leave, or just tell them like fuck off, right?
Yeah.
Like it's like this is the thing about like the hardcore raiding scene. Like people are scared because people are toxic or people are elitist. the only people that are going to be, I mean, this is kind of what elitist means in the way we
Right.
intended into Guild Wars 2 anyway. Like we say that someone is elitist when they think they are good, but they are basically irrelevant, right? The only people that are ever going to be elitist or toxic are bad players, because the good players, they don't care how much kill proof you have. They don't care what build you're even playing, as long as you don't have aggro of the boss because you have the most toughness. Like that, in that case, you're kind of trolling a little bit. But
Yeah.
um, just do whatever you want. The good players, the people you're supposed to be terrified of, they will not care. The people that are actually toxic and they make you hate raiding, those people are probably and very likely just not good. So
And they've
honestly,
probably never rated.
just don't even care about them. Like
Yeah.
they are honestly, if you were to raid, they will probably be worse than you. No, I'm not talking about you right now, so that
No,
can be said. Like if
I'm
oh
taking
dear.
this all to heart.
Oh boy. I meant like them, like first time raiders. Like if you were to like, I don't know, 1v1 me raid boss, bro, like they probably lose, right? But
Right.
yeah, just give it a try. If you, I don't know, if you're scared of doing it with like random people, just don't go on Xandrii stream and be like, Xandrii, I want to raid, and Xandrii will be like, yes, let's go
Me
raid
too.
now. Right? Like go, I don't know, join my stream, do the same thing. Like
Yeah.
it's like for me, raiding is a lot of fun, right? Yeah, I get very frustrated when I do my normal clears, because people die to auto attacks a lot, and I don't like that. But it's fun. Like if I had a new player in my chat, Mela, I've been getting bullied in raids. These people call me bad, dude. Just get in. We do every single raid first try, and it will be fun, right? We'll also, I don't know, we'll play like a meme of music in the background.
Right.
I love raiding. Do raiding. It's fun. It's good. And add protection in raids. Have healing scourge in raids. Play builds that make you win. And buy the expansion when it comes out.
I'll have both of our links in the description, by the way, for you guys to buy buy the expansion. I'll need that from you, by the way. I'll need your link so that I can put it in to promote it. Yeah.
I get free shilling? Oh my god.
Of course.
Wow, incredible.
And speaking of which, if you want to let everybody know where they can find you during the week one more time, just in case so they don't forget.
Yeah, you can find me on YouTube, twitch.tv. Well, wait, that's the wrong link. You can find me on Twitch, twitch.tv/Mela. You can find me on Twitter @HiMela. I don't really tweet that much, kind of getting into it. YouTube, Mela on Twitch is my YouTube channel. Or just type Mela SC. For some reason, the YouTube algorithm still counts that, even though I'm not in the guild anymore. And you will find me, just Mela all over the place. Stream mostly every day until unless I'm sleeping and then I forget to turn the stream on. And I do raids, some PvP here and there, fractals. I talk about how Scourge Broken is on stream quite a lot, actually. I think it's very fun to talk about. And yeah, that is me.
Perfect. Thanks, guys. And don't forget to talk about your experiences as well in the comments. Let us know if you've had any issues getting into a group, if you would like to get one of mine or Mela's, and where you can actually do that. We've discussed it multiple times in the videos, so I'll see you guys at the next one.
Yep.